G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by these three lovely gentlemen, Algrid, Dyson, and Paul, or known as the Astro Pub. All right, so we had a massive data dump today for what was, I guess, I'm going to call it Citizen Day because technically that's what it was, but what would have been CitizenCon. And obviously we've got this vote that is up, and basically we wanted to give you guys some more information because I voted already, and it looks like now I voted for the wrong person. So to save some of you doing that, we're hoping to to give you guys some information. So yeah, if you like this type of content, like this video, subscribe, dislike the video if you dislike it, support us on Patreon, all that usual jazz. We're pretty quick and short with that. So anyway, Algrid, I want you to kick us off. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to talk about, you're each going to talk about one candidate, and then we're all going to talk about that candidate, and then we'll ask some questions and move on. And we're going to go through the list just on the website as they're listed. So Algrid, you're straight off the rank with Leilani Anderson. Go for it.
Leilani Anderson, academic, coming from Mentor University, and she is going on the campaign of greater research and into AI technology. And so a lot of backers are really keen on Leilani Anderson because, hey, it's going to be remote turrets and all that type of stuff and better AI. She's also keen for Synth World. She is also keen for exploration, finding what happened to the ship that disappeared, which has just gone from my memory, and the Artemis, the ship that had an AI crew sending people off to a nearest star way back in the dim dark ages of the Empire, and the ship disappeared. What happened to the Artemis? And that's been one of those problems, or one of those mysteries that the Empire has always had. And so she's keen to do all of those types of history research, for scientific research, the exploration research, and push that type of thing. Very popular with the community. However, when you look at her campaign, she doesn't explain how she's going to pay for the campaign. And I see that this is a big problem. And I see the big outfall of this is that we're going to find, if Leilani Anderson is elected, we will have taxes and fees rise and go through the roof. So Leilani will add to our taxes. Yes.
So I got a question. I'm going to be doing questions all the way through because I'm a layperson. I know none of the shit that these boys do. Right. So straight off the bat, one thing I did pick up on is it looks like all the candidates have kind of slightly hidden agendas in the way it's like politically worded, kind of like real life. So what you're suggesting is that she's got hidden fees and taxes and stuff in her mandate. Is what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every other candidate kind of has these. Oh yes, we'll put checks on Synth World, or we'll do this, or we'll reduce military spending and do more militia. Leilani comes in and she says, I want to keep Synth World, so she's not cutting that. She acknowledges we're in a bitter war against a merciless foe. She's not wanting to cut military spending.
Yeah.
So where's her funding coming from?
I just got another question. So Synth World, from my memory, is that fake world that they're building, and there's obviously a lot of expenditure associated with that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So okay. Synth World is officially known as Project Archangel. It's a plan to try and build a synthetic world, so that we don't have to terraform planets and wipe out sentient or species that are gaining sentience. It's all part of to do with that Fair Chance Act. So it's very, very heavily linked to that. So she's not going to be one.
She's for the Fair Chance Act, then, obviously.
She would, based on that, should be very pro Fair Chance Act. And given that she's an academic, again, the academics are those who really want the Fair Chance Act. So there are planets and systems that are covered by the Fair Chance Act, which have no life on them.
Now, have you got anything else to add before I pass it on to Dyson and Paul to add their
that'll do. That'll do.
All right, Paul, do you want to go first for me?
For responding to
what Algrid has to say about Leilani Anderson. Anything you want to add, or unbiased that you think he said, or?
I think that a lot of people are also going to be voting for her because AI is good, but it's also important to remember that these kind of things take time. And just because you have you get an NPC, or you get somebody who wants to create AI, which means maybe better AI for your ships or something like that, doesn't mean it'll happen, because they also have to, like, the Imperator is a figurehead. They do have some power, and they do have a lot of power in directing policy, but their job isn't, they're not a dictator. They don't have ultimate power. They have to go through the Senate.
So like in real life, where you have a president or a prime minister, and then you have like there's almost a massive Congress of people that have to check off to make sure it's okay. Yeah, okay. So it's not a dictatorship.
It's not a dictatorship. So like when you vote for the Imperator, she's even has less power. He or she will actually have less power even than like the modern U.S. presidents or modern prime ministers of countries. In fact, that role is mostly taken up by what's called the High Secretary, who's technically in charge of Congress. The Imperator is simply just a chief executive in terms of making sure that the bureaucracy works. So they don't have nearly as much power. They have to sign off on laws and they can direct policy, but they can't make laws. They can't dictate things. And that's something that's important to remember through all of these candidates.
Okay.
So
yeah, probably the biggest thing is that they set the agenda for the Senate rather than anything else. So a topic they don't like, they keep pushing to the bottom of the agenda.
They can remove it. They can remove a law from
kind of like vetoing with the president, because I know he's got a veto.
No, they just don't let it get discussed, so it doesn't get voted on. It just moved aside.
It doesn't even. It's like a pre-veto. It prevents it from even getting put up to the front to a floor vote for the Congress. So,
which is also a very powerful bargaining chip.
It's also a holdover from the old Measure era imperatorship. So that's an important starting point, but it's also important to remember that just voting for her doesn't mean you're going to get AI popping up out of your ship. You're not going to get what's his name from Iron
Bishop.
Man.
So no AK-47s or Jarvises is what you're saying.
Yeah.
No Jarvises.
Or C-3POs or any of that type of stuff.
No.
Which we all want.
From Aliens, no, none of that stuff.
Nope.
Yeah. All right.
And you won't even see it straight away. Like, it's got to do the research. So,
yeah. So Dyson, what's your thoughts on Ileana Addison? And yeah, I have to look at it every time I read it because it doesn't roll off my tongue.
Yes. Oh, well, everything they said for the facts are great, but what I have to say is the AI research I also could see being a kind of a dangerous path to go down. From game, interesting, but I could totally see some issues with how AI is implemented and everything, because this is definitely a very visionary candidate for the sciences. And the other thing is the trade deals with the Xeon, because one of the big things she mentions is her fascination with their technology. So I could definitely see this maybe leaning into more deals with the Xeon.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because I had a few questions I was going to ask, and one of them is, do you think that there would be big businesses like, say, Microtech that would be pushing a candidate like this to hopefully for them to sell more products and whatnot? Paul, you were going to... You don't doubt it? Okay, you were going to say something else, though.
Oh, yeah. It's also important that when the mentioning of the Artemis, the fact that she has leads and she wants to find the Artemis, one of the reasons why she wants to is because humanity has made AI. We've actually...
Obvious question. What the hell is the Artemis? I don't know.
So let's backtrack a little bit. The Artemis was a pre-jump point technology. They had invented quantum drives, but they hadn't found jump points yet. And so it was an attempt to build a colony ship to be sent to another star using quantum drives only. So
pick their nearest star system, put people in the cryo, AI crew, and off it went.
Yeah, off it went.
Oh,
and that's the thing.
And it was just lost. Was it?
Well, that's the thing. We have built AI before. Humanity does. Humanity's not just gone stupid. It's not like we don't know how to make AI. We're close to building AI even now, in the IRL terms. It's just that every single time humanity has built AI, something goes wrong. Mars Project was governed by an AI. It went bad and killed everybody. There was an attempt in Tokyo to link all of the traffic together with an AI. Went crazy and killed everyone. Artemis was controlled by an AI. Disappeared.
They need to have a storyline of a secret cabal that just takes out every AI, so they hack it and make them killer robots. I reckon that's the storyline. And they've been doing it for like, those long lost religious, those long lost religious sects, but they've just been doing it for thousands of years. Started in 1995 and it's just gone all the way through. That'd be great. like almost the reverse of what you see. But anyway.
But yeah, but that's another thing to a point. It's like, just because you want AI doesn't mean, just because you want Jarvis doesn't mean you won't get Skynet.
And what do you pay to get it? That's the other thing. Like, from what Algrid said at the start of this, like, I if we're all getting charged through the wazoo for taxes and stuff, that could be bad. But again, this wasn't kind of like obviously listed in the ploy, but this is a way they could go. Yeah, so that's kind
And the
of
real question is who gets taxed too, because that could be rather interesting. Because the question isn't how you're necessarily going to pay for it; it's who are you going to get to pay for it.
Tax all the churches.
And it's
That's what
probably
they'll
not
do.
going to be, and it's not going to probably not going to be the big businesses that are backing her for things like AI research. So it wouldn't be places like Microtech, which have a lot of invested interest in that. So
and which worlds?
And it could be, she. One of the questions that did get raised about her is she has no political party. She's an independent. So
which is interesting. I do like that.
She's the outlier. She's the outlier in the group. The others are all members of political parties. She's the outlier.
Political parties can be a bad thing too, not a good thing. So it can go both ways.
But the thing that got raised with her is she's managed to get funding to fund her campaign.
Yeah.
Now, she did do things like go around the empire and the smaller places first and build up her campaign, build up her support. But questions have been raised. Where did she get her funding from? And given her her fascination of Xi'an, it could be Xi'an. She could be a Xi'an puppet. She could be getting funding from companies like MISC, who do use Xi'an tech.
No, I hate to bring that up based on what you just said, Algo, but do you think, and I did mention this before the shows, and you guys said yes, is that them art imitating life, where they're suggesting that like she might have been backed by the Chinese, like with the Xi'an backing her, or something like that, or the Russians, or whatnot?
By a foreign entity. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
interesting. I like that. I like that dynamic. It's kind of cool. All right,
so there's some of the issues you've got with her, definitely.
All right. So what I'll say is that's who I actually voted for. And after you guys have told me, I'm now having regrets. But anyway. Right. So we'll move on to Titus Costagen. Dyson, can you tell me about this guy? He looks like he's, I don't know, a member of the Blue Man group without the blue paint.
Best way of putting it, basically think a trust fund kid, because this guy's dad is the current guy whose office he is running for.
So this would be like
the son.
Who's Donald Trump's son? What's his name? I always forget. Yeah, Trump Jr. So this is like Trump Jr. Yeah, it's whatever. Take your pick.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it's almost like a child of a former president or a prime minister or something like that.
It would be like George W. Bush running for president right after George,
his dad.
George Bush.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt there, Dyson. Continue, please.
It's perfectly good. And the interesting thing about this is he is actually running against someone else from his own party, and due to his status as the son, the father is kind of not endorsing actually anyone at this point in time, which is again another oddity of this little election here.
You think he'd back his own son though, wouldn't you? So yeah, there is. So that's like by not endorsing anyone, he's actually not endorsing his son. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. No, he's not endorsing anyone from the party, and I think that
actually. But you would just naturally assume that a father would back a son. So the fact that he's backing no one,
unless it's a politically toxic, because that would probably hurt him, because then that would definitely look like nepotism versus him standing back, being like, "Hey, look, we got two people from this party. I'm gonna just not hurt the party
especially when the Imperator usually supports the High Secretary who goes for the position after them, which is one of the other candidates, and he's not supporting her either. So not supporting either keeps him as a neutral. So I don't think that's a negative.
Yep. And there's a couple interesting things about him. A lot of players might like the fact that he is definitely a supporter of the Militia Mobilization initiative. So you're definitely going to be looking at someone that's definitely going to be pushing getting that more military tech and kind of into the militias.
So is that like a space Texan, space gun nut type of person? Is that what you're trying to say there? I'm just curious. No? Okay. My bad. I'm from Australia where, don't have the gun thing here, so I'm just curious. Yeah. Sorry.
So a militia mobilization initiative, to make the basic breakdown, is, do you know how people have the Polaris and the Javelins and the Idrises? That's because of the militia mobilization.
Oh, okay. Right.
It basically says, hey, we need to sell people who are the only police forces on the frontier guns so they can actually defend the frontier while the military is off fighting the Vanduul because they won't be around to protect the people.
So kind of like
So it's like-
your right to defend your own land is. Am I in this?
But more, you might say.
It's a bit like you've got the police force of Hurston or the police force of Arkport.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Microtech.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But
so you can set up your own.
But it's also making militias, i.e., player groups, be able to do stuff.
Right. Okay. Interesting. All right. Sorry, Dyson. Please continue. We've interrupted you like 6 times already. Sorry. Keep going.
It's perfectly okay. There's a lot of interesting things surrounding this candidate, but overall, he is the best way of putting it, the boring status quo. He is legitimately, yes, he's the type of person that is getting rid of regulations, just the basic things you would expect a candidate to say: lower taxes, less regulations, increasing defense spending, just the standard things you would expect from a candidate.
So 4 more years type of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
10 more years.
All right. Is there anything I was going to ask you guys if there's any more you want to add, but is there anything? So you go, Algrid. Yeah, go for it.
Basically, this guy is the guy who's supported by the Haulers Guild. So the Haulers Guild, the Merchants Guild, and the Business Economic Trust are all supporting. They've all endorsed him. So if you're someone who is a hauler, if you're someone who loves hauling, this is your candidate. This is a guy who's going to be supporting your interests. He's not into the AI tech. It's not saying he's going to say, "Oh, let's get rid of the remote turrets altogether." But his key platform, his key support, his key backers are the haulers. His key backers are the merchants. His key backers are the business economic people. So that's where his support's coming from, and he comes from the background of being a CEO of a company. He is and as he says, I'm the outsiders looking in. I've watched my dad do both high secretary as well as Imperator. So he's been in politics and watching politics for 20 years. So he'd know how politics works, and that's the claim that's used against him. And Leilani, that they both claimed, you guys don't know politics. You should go back to what you know. Costagen's in that unique position where he actually does know the players. He's seen the players, and he'd have his dad's perspective on the players. So
anything you would like to add, Paul, about Titus Costagen?
Yeah, he's he's the one that I made a video on this kind of thing, and I predicted that he would be the one who wins if CIG was the one who's going to be choosing it, just because he is the boring status quo. He is he does everything. He makes sure that the universe as it is does not change enough, so you still have enough content. That was before the CIG team has gone out and basically said that they would respect the vote of players when players voted for things.
Interesting.
So I would say that he is. There's one problem. Historically speaking, this has never happened before. Not since the fascist dictators of the Mezzers has there been another relative, even just a relative of a former sitting Imperator running for Imperator.
Okay, so that's a big deal. It's a
dynasty issue.
Yeah. It's
He actually addresses that too.
Yeah. But it's still one of those. It's only been like humans live a lot longer in the Star Citizen universe than they do today. So it's only been maybe 200 years since a little bit less than 200 years since the fall of the Mezzers. Okay. So many of them are people had their parents alive during the fall of them during the Mezzer era, and they know, or they kind of they've heard the horror stories.
They've heard the stories.
I've got to ask then. So, what is the average life? Well, what's the life expectancy of a human in
between 150 to 200 years?
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That surprised me. I didn't know that. Right.
Assuming you're not being shot at and blown up.
Right.
Not as soon as you're not being eaten by a Vanduul. Yeah. Like Admiral Bishop is 90.
Yep. So
He's an 80 or 90 years old.
I'm going to move on to the next candidate, but before we start, I noticed this before the show and I didn't say anything, but I'm going to say it now. And I'm looking at a picture here of Paul Lasalle, right? And I actually suspect, Paul, that this is you shaved but older. He looks very similar to you. He really, really does, and it's freaking me out. Like I double took a few times and went, they've copied Paul! And they've just shaved him!
Paul has more personality.
Paul Lasalle.
But
Paul Lasalle.
Yeah, if you get a chance, go look at the poster and then have a look. Put it up against Paul's face while you're looking off the website and have a look. It does look remarkably like it could be you, Paul. It's very, very interesting. Anyway, so tell us about Paul Lasalle, aka yourself, right?
AKA myself. I hate myself if that's the case. So Paul Lasalle is the centralist candidate. Centralist being more on the political spectrum towards the right. He's very he was a senator. He retired from the Senate in 2939. So it's been almost 20 years since he was in Canada, since he was in office, but he is the current head of the Centralist Party. He's the chairman of the Centralist Party. He has his former partner was convicted of multiple counts of embezzlement and tax evasion in business. He's a businessman, but he's also very much a politician. He's kind of
he knows nothing. I know nothing about those. I know nothing about those strange practices that my partner was doing.
The obvious elephant in the room then is this is to draw with real life. I'm just going to say it. He seems a lot like Trump. So
Trump. He is. I like to say he's Trump with no personality.
Okay. Which Trump definitely has. Yes.
Love him or hate him, the man has personality. And compared to LaSalle is like a boring book. His own party doesn't like him. He kicked two other popular centralist candidates, one of which who was a former vice admiral of the Navy, and the other one who's the former head of the advocacy. So basically the head of the FBI, who were both very popular, who lost out to LaSalle. This is not strictly lore, but I assume that a lot of that is probably because he pulled rank, because it's his turn. It's his time. Mm-hmm. Now the thing about the centralists and about him is that they're tended to be a little bit more xenophobic. So if you're on the side of the burn the xenos kind of candidate, then he's your candidate.
He's against the
Gian, Banu, the Tavarin.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Tavarin. What's he? So any integration and all that, like build the wall type thing with Trump, but he's against. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does he want to do with the Tavarin, as an example? I'm just curious.
Specifically, and I'll pull up his thing. His specific thing is to deal with. He focuses more on taxes. He wants to lower taxes. He wants to give more like freedom for businesses. But when it comes to things like the Gian, he wants to restrict access to human markets.
Kind of like the trade war that's going on in real life. Yeah, okay. Yep. There's very strong parallels here. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
He also is very much against. There's nothing in here that he says specifically about the Tavarin specifically. But I'm assuming that if he does not believe in giving the Tavarin any help. He's a kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. Like if you're in the Empire, you got to make your own way.
I was going to say I'm noticing a kind of trend here that's kind of interesting, and just it's a small reflection type of epiphany that's come to me is every single candidate we've talked about so far, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same with the next two, is they all have these things that I like, but they also have these negatives, and that's indicative of any real life politician. You don't like everything that they are for, and I do kind of like that in a way. It makes you, what's the least worst candidate, and that's literally how I look at politics in real life. Like, who is the lesser evil? That's who I'm going to vote for.
That's kind of how that works. Yeah. He 100%. His first thing he doesn't like is to do away with the Fair Chance Act. He wants to be able
technically reevaluate it, but
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Technically, reevaluate means I don't like it and it's gone.
Yeah.
So the Fair Chance Act, for those two guys who don't know, is a basically, it's like, think of it as like the Endangered Species Act, or kind of an endangered species laws or environmental laws.
It's the first contact law for Star Trek.
Yeah.
For Star Trek, yeah. It's the Prime Directive. It basically prevent yourself from infringing on the culture and development of species that could be sentient. And they found lots of species which are sentient or close to being sentient in the Star System universe. In fact, the destruction of a sentient species caused the entire Messer regime to be overthrown, which is why the Fair Chance Act exists in the first place.
Admittedly, from Dave Haddock's report on that, it was the video stream of the Messers and the people partying over the corpses of the dead creatures that they've kind of done that kind of tipped the balance and made everyone go, "This is horrific, let's get rid of them."
Yeah. But Lasalle is very much a remove restrictions, remove the roadblocks to business.
So he's not he's not wanting to go back to slaughtering them. He just wants to remove the red tape for business. Is that can you clarify that?
They have resources. They're not using those resources.
Okay.
Why don't we just strip mine the planet? Yeah, it might hurt them, but whatever. They're not humans.
So he really doesn't.
You got to think about
right,
humanity first.
Yeah.
It's not like let's drink champagne over their corpses. It's more like, so we ruined your entire planet's ecosphere. You should have been higher technology.
Yeah.
And
so is he more like Messer than anyone else? Would you say?
He's the centralists are the closest to the Messer regime.
Okay.
I don't think they're Messers, the Messerists. They're not very Messer in their beliefs, but they're the closest. Blue Bloods.
Yeah,
they're the Blue Bloods, the oldest kind of like established party in the verse. All of them are former senators or powerful politicians or businessmen. And again, Lasalle doesn't focus on any of this. He focuses on deregulation, less red tape, easier for businesses to react, and easier for bounty hunters and private military contractors to work. Reduce the red tape, let them deal with the problems, even get non-violent criminals out of the prison system, make them pay fines rather than going into the prison systems. He wants to reduce government in every way.
Okay. Agrid, your thoughts on Paul?
Yeah, basically, Paul Astropub LaSalle.
Yeah, that's it. We need to get that. That'd be awesome if we could get that into the log. Paul Astropub LaSalle. Yeah, go. Yeah.
He is anti first Fair Chance Act, and I think one of the things he really rankles against is the academics' view that even systems that haven't got any life, but they just want to watch the system develop, are bound by this Fair Chance Act, and so they can't even go in and mine them, and he wants to get rid of that. He also says, "Oh, look, we don't want to wipe out the system, wipe out the life on those planets where there are life. We want to be able to go in with a new technology and mine out the minerals that are there." The problem I find with that is they don't know if taking out the copper in a planet is going to screw up. The
also
life
means
of
when they develop that they don't have the copper either. So
yeah.
I can see where you're going
you need copper to do this. Guess what? Can't become a spacefaring race because we've taken all the ingredients you need.
Yeah, so I can see where that's going.
So he's got problems there. He's certainly, I think, the person who would want to back this guy would be, I think, your criminal. The guys who not necessarily your go out and kill everyone on sight type person, but your fencers and your smugglers and those types. They're the people who are going to back this guy because I get caught, I just pay the fine. It also gives you.
I would say that and the people who are bounty hunters and mercenaries.
Because it's making it easier for them to do their job, and putting those fines on lower criminals. That's going to reduce the cost of running prisons, but it's also going to increase income via those fines. It also means selling of licenses to your bounty hunters is going to be an income. So that you can actually see, in a sense, where he's seeing some of his income is going to come from, and we're getting rid of the Fair Chance Act. That's going to be very popular with the big industries and miners, and that's also going to be another source of revenue for a cash-strapped society. So this guy has some good ideas, but
questionable ways he's
Getting
going
rid of the
about
Fair
it.
Chance Act, a good idea? Really?
Yeah. So your thoughts, Dyson? Obviously, you're passionate about this guy. Let us know. What's your thoughts on
This guy is pretty much cancer. And I just say that because you look at places
agree.
like, you look at Hurston and you see how bad the environment is there for the people there and the conditions. And you think, oh, let's just watch these more regulations that are protecting these workers go away, or this environment of this planet, which is kind of tenuous at this moment. Let's see that.
and that's what makes him so horrid. Yes.
You see that, plus you see the Fair Chance Act going away. I mean, there's a lot of downsides, though. I do like the idea of, as a player, I like the idea of being able to just pay fines, and I also do like the expanded bounty hunting, because that's something that I think would be fun to do. So there are some pluses on the game end side, but I can definitely say a lot of really bad policies here.
Yeah, but when you get the AI take over control of your ship when you're flying in a no-fly zone that crashes you into the deck on top of a landing bay, and you get a crime stat which then sends you to prison because you're in Hurstville, and the guards shoot you because you can't even pay the fine, he's going to do away with that.
All right, I'm going to move us on. Algred, the next candidate is Mira. Is it Mira No or Nago?
Mira Nago.
I think it's Mira Nago.
I'm going to say Mira Nago. If I was using my Indonesian skills, it'd be Ngo, because the NG would be a silent G.
Yeah.
If it was using the Korean, it'd probably be more silent as well.
Yeah.
But I think, as Paul was saying before the show, in the future, those linguistic differences are gone. You speak like a Texan, you speak it like an Australian. Ngo.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So, Mira Nago, Algred, tell us.
I have often said on other chat, and guys said, "Oh, you're just going to bag her out and crucify her because you hate her." Because I have been saying Ingo has to go, lock her up, and the only reason I say that is because she is.
I knew it.
But the only reason I say that is because one of her key platforms is moving the capital from Earth to Terra. Now, I take the view of the old Romans, and I remember reading when Constantine, who'd set the empire up in Constantinople, came to visit Rome. He visited Rome once during his tenure after setting up the empire capital in Constantinople, or later Byzantium. And the Romans laughed at him and bagged him out because he dressed like he was dressing like a Xian, or dressing like a Persian.
Or a Persian,
and the Romans hated that. Interesting, it's the same thing that happened to Alexander. Alexander got ridiculed by the Macedonians when he came back because he was starting to look more like an Easterner, which is one of the reasons why.
Well, if you're in the area and your clothes get dirty, you've just got to wear the clothes they've got, don't you? So that's just kind of how it happens.
And, so I know that she wants to do that, and so I'm taking the old Earth view. But Mira is actually pretty good. Apart from that, I actually like Mira. Her first act, as she says, is to move the capital, but saying she's moving the capital is different from just saying he's going to do it. You still got the Senate on board. And but moving the capital makes really good sense for the empire. Not because Terra is a big industrial center, not because anything like that. In fact, if you look at Constantinople and do the real Earth comparison, Constantinople or Byzantium was a little piddly little village. But the advantage of it, or small city compared to Rome, but the advantage of it was that it was centrally located. So what Constantine did is he redistributed the army. He said, right, I've got a big major mobile army, and we're positioned here. And from this point, we can actually get to all the trouble spots in the empire really quickly. Terra has 4 major jump points. It's got probably the most major jump points too, which means you can get to most centers really, really quickly. Even if you don't move the capital, moving the fleet's headquarters and the main elements of the fleet to Terra make perfect sense. Mira is a perfect example for the good of the Empire and the stability of the Empire in that sense. People say she's anti-Earth. Just like Constantine, or Titus Costagen has probably spent more time around government than any of the other guys, any of the other candidates, because his dad has been, he's been in those scenes for 20 odd years. Mira is basically a 30-year-old veteran. Her grandmother was a senator who pushed for the moving of the capital, and that bill got defeated in the Senate. She wants to try and follow that dream. Her parents were also senators. That means Mira has been likely living on Earth for about 20 years. So her parents, or certainly her parents there. So she's lived on Earth a good portion of her life, probably more than any other candidate in the campaign. So she's not anti-Earth.
So besides the Terra stuff, what are the other? Give us a bit of the other side, because you focused a lot on the Terra. What's her other mandates?
Basically, one of her other mandates, if I recall correctly, is reducing or watching or putting a hold, I think, on some of the. No, that's not right. I was thinking she was going to do a hold on synth world tech. I think that's the main thing. But I can't think of other things. Paul?
I'll add one to her. She wants to do a Tavaran.
That's right. The Tavaran build up.
The Tavaran build up. She wants to increase the participation of Tavaran in
good thing
in the government.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a equal opportunity kind of movement, where she wants to basically mandate a certain number of Tavaran employees in every government program to try to get them to become more integrated into the Empire.
Yeah. And I think that's important, because to differentiate, like, this is from an outsider's perspective, it's not like in the real world where there are different races. These guys have, like, as far as I'm aware, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but they've pretty much almost been totally annihilated. Their whole planet was gone. Yeah, by us. Like, it's almost like us. Like, they're almost like an extinct species, like the Fair Chance Act. They've almost been completely wiped out, and we're now integrating them into our society. And I think we now need to take some kind of responsibility for them. And I think that if they're not integrating properly, they're not going to survive. They're going to die out by financial means, or however you want to call it. So I think we need to take responsibility for them now. So I think that is important.
Well, yeah.
The other big thing I'm just going to have to say that she has is expanding the protections under the common laws across groups of citizens and civilians.
So is that like really at Hurston, for example, like bringing up the work quality and health and safety? Is that what you're talking about there?
Sort of.
Right.
It also means like currently, like there's a lot of things that citizens can do that civilians can't, like travel between planets is a lot easier for citizens than it is civilians. There's a lot more restrictions for civilians' movement and stuff like that. Those kind of things. She's trying to break down the old citizen-civilian
divide.
She's trying to
a little bit like in Starship Troopers, where you couldn't have babies and whatnot, and you had to get. Is it a little bit like that, or not?
To get babies. Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But
cool. All right.
While she's got, and I like the idea of her Tavaran initiative. One of the things I've often said to people, certainly in the last week, is a couple of the goals I've had in terms of what I want to do in game is get SynthWorld working. Do the trade runs to SynthWorld just for the sake of getting it working. But the other one is going to the Tavaran settlements and supporting them and working to build them up. I remember Chris Roberts once saying, if you went to settlements which were struggling, you'd see broken windows and graffiti and litter and beggars on the street and, all that type of thing, and drug addicts and all those types of things. You'd see the elements of crime being high. But as a society was thriving, you'd see it get cleaned up. And so you'd see no graffiti and clean, known broken windows and more open shops and that type of thing. And so it'd be nice to go to a Tavaran settlement and actually see it develop and become a thriving community
change
rather
over
than
time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Rather than being a struggling, dying society. In the same way, if you've got a good society, a thriving society like Microtech, and Microtech suddenly goes through a major downturn, you'd actually see, from Chris's viewpoint, that actually go down, and you'd see more broken elements and things. So they'd probably get more of a Hurston or Art Corp look with the graffiti and the litter and things there. So,
is there anything else you guys want to add on Mira and a go? Oh, finish what you're going to say, Ogre. But is
the main thing was I don't like her initiative of just making people go in. I'd rather see people with the best
intentions,
best skills get employed for the jobs, rather than just just because you're in. But
that does have real life consequences. We've seen that in the real world as well. Is there anything you boys want to add, Dyson or Paul?
I can add negative.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, for sure. Sounds like she needs one.
This is Dyson's candidates. I feel like we've been talking over Dyson for his candidate, but I don't know.
Yes. This is the one Dyson loves. Dyson loves this girl.
Yes. Well, I'm. You can go say you're negative, but I'm just gonna have to say best well-rounded candidate in my personal opinion, because you're not gonna see a lot of initiatives that are gonna extremely raise taxes or funding issues, but you got a lot of quality of life things through the expansion of the common laws, through helping out the Tavaran, and through moving the capital to a more central location.
Yep. I also say that she is.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I kind of agree. I kind of. Now hearing you guys talk about it, maybe I should have voted this one instead. But anyway, sorry, Paul, you were going to say?
It's the difference between, like, I've been saying that Leilani Anderson is the meme candidate. Everyone will vote her for because it's a meme. It's a meme to vote for her. It's like, oh yeah, this is the AI lady. But it's like when you actually look at the policies, it's like Ngo is the best, least breaking stuff candidate. She's the best candidate in terms of like not ruining everything. There is a negative part. Is that she is like almost 100% probably being funded by criminal elements, including possibly the Xi'an Empire, because there's lots of connections between the Xi'an Empire and her family and Terra, as well as criminal elements, including organized crime.
So outside influences.
That definitely have aspects in her own in her campaign and have been connected to her family for years. There was a break-in to her facility or into her her personal home or something like that, where they stole financial records.
In fact, wasn't that one of the big last year?
It happened last year
at the one of the big events. So we had those news reports at Citizen Day. We had
CitizenCon.
Yeah, and we had the reports of the break-ins across Terra of key people of different parties, and she was one of the targeted.
We don't know who targeted them. We don't know who did those break-ins, but they hit a lot of people who were very important. So
the last one we have today, the last final candidate, I have trouble pronouncing this name, is Ileana Sherrod. And Dawson, you're going to talk about her for us.
Basically, she's the other candidate from the Universal Party, and the best way of putting it, if you don't want the basically trust fund baby taking over, that's not going to change anything, the status quo, you go for her. She has some new ideas, but is still overall status quo with, of course, expanding infrastructure. That is one of the biggest things to be looking at.
So like more jump gates and stuff like that, akin to roads from today's terminology.
Fixing them.
But there's some big downsides to her with the best way of putting it, she's going to start requiring actual engagement from people that are receiving basically, let's say, welfare, essentially. Right. If you're receiving welfare, you better be you're going to actually have to be involved in civil service programs. And
so like work for the dole and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things they did in Australia when with the dole or work assistance was basically if you're on assistance, you've actually got to do
community service type things.
Community service type stuff if you're not employed. So
And again, that is a good thing to extent, but the real question with her, and this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting, is to what extent are you going to have is the service, and also what infrastructure projects and where, and are those projects going to be put in? Is it who's going to decide which projects get done? There's a lot of interesting questions to still be answered there. And of course, if you're a fan of Synth World,
so she's a little vague. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like where she's going to send people?
Specified.
Yeah. So you're suggesting she could be sending people to Synth World to work and stuff? Is that what you're about?
Well, she's wanting to cut funding to Synth World, and basically,
yeah.
Good. Stop it. So again, the question though is where are those projects going? Where's that? And there's a lot of room for corruption in her programs.
All right. Algrid, do you want to give us a little bit on your take on Sherrod?
I think it's Ileana Sherrod is I don't think is as bad as Dawson makes her out to be. Although she is certainly not a favoured candidate. She is the current what's her current office, Paul?
High
Secretary. Thank you. She's the current High Secretary. She's the one who actually gets to enact a lot of policies. So just like the Imperator kind of can judge put things on the agenda, the High Secretary is the one who actually makes things happen. And so there are lots of things that have happened where the High Secretary is kind of now saying, oh, the Imperator, he wouldn't let me do it. I couldn't argue against that point. And I think that's BS. I think she was full on board with what he was doing. So if she doesn't like it now, she's just... there's certain reasons why I think the current Imperator isn't endorsing her, and I think it's her. I think she's a backstabber. So I think she's... I don't like this one at all. I think she's really bad in that sense. Her infrastructure idea, I don't think is as nebulous as Dawson makes out, because I think the idea is that every system gets to pick a infrastructure idea, and so the senators of that system and the government of that system would then work that out. And
that was her first act, wasn't it? From memory, I remember we'll fast track one infrastructure project in each system. Yep.
And so the system gets to choose the infrastructure, and that's like Earth has like 8 senators, and each planet has a government body, and so the government bodies would elect the senators. So the system would determine the infrastructure program. Again, what infrastructure program is going to be up to the system, but I could imagine lots of systems going for the biggest bang buck, the biggest bang for their buck
and corruption
to get the most,
well,
and so you'll get that, and so that's where I think the criminal element comes in.
Paul, sorry, you finished?
And I just think the fact that she's the current High Secretary and claims I know I'm not responsible is BS. So
sounds like it to me. Paul, your thoughts on Ileana Sherrod?
She's boring. She's
boring.
She's boring. She's boring status quo. I mean, like she's literally like the High Secretary's job is literally to enact the Imperator's will, but also to manage the Senate and make sure that people are doing the right things. So if you like what's going on currently, she's a perfect candidate because she literally doesn't upset anything. So it would essentially be the same, no change from previous.
Well, even worse. She is the one who is responsible for all the mess ups that are currently there.
Yeah. So from an outsider,
she's enacted them.
From an outsider looking in, it almost looks like they've taken the status quo and split it to make it more diluted, so you're less likely to pick the status quo. That's what it looks like. From what my thinking is, the writers have done that. So you've got to, and then they've added that convoluted problem where he's not backing either of them. Well, I think that I don't know.
I really feel like it's 2 status quo options. One with a little bit of change with the infrastructure project, and the other one that's a little bit more like, all right, nothing different.
Yeah. I think it's a complete opposite. I think she's the one who's a status quo, and trying to redo things by we'll kill Synth World, but we'll use the funding there for the infrastructure. And I think Costagen's probably the least status quo.
All right, then I'll let Paul. What's you tie break that one for me?
I think she is more status quo. I think Costagen is probably more change than status quo, but I don't think he's Like calling him change is
It's relative.
it's like
Yeah.
he's
Okay,
more
okay.
centralist in his business ideas than like the difference between him and Paul Lasalle is like, I don't like Xenos, but we
Damn
want
it.
less restrictions.
Yeah.
But
So-
Costagen, Titus is I don't care who's making the money as long as business is being done, as
Yeah.
long as people are being hired. So like, yes, I want to reduce restrictions, but I don't care if the Xi'an company comes into the UEE and
Right.
hires people because they're still working.
Yep.
It doesn't matter
Because his view is if
doing
people are working, then people are paying taxes, which means that's generating income for the government.
Mhm.
Bit like our own government has said, essential workers during the lockdown was anyone with a job
Yeah.
because
Anyone with a
you're
job.
keeping the economy ticking.
Yeah.
Bats Costagen.
Yeah.
Sherrod, I think, is the, like Paul says, is the more status quo, keeps things running, keeps things ticking the way she likes. And
I do think she does have an extreme thing about killing the Synth World project. She's the only one who wants to kill the Synth World project.
Oh, okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, which is expensive. It's been expensive.
Yep.
It's been.
But wouldn't you
lot of-
finish it
lot
now
of
you've gone
fun.
this far? Like that's the other thing. Like so
Exactly.
everything would
Like,
be a
it's
waste
sunk
of
cost.
money.
Yeah, it's a sunk cost at a certain point. Like we've already sunk so much. Why don't we just?
it depends how far they are, and a lot of the information
That's
is
true.
classified, so we don't actually know what benefits have come from it.
All I'm picturing is the Death Star from episode
I mean,
episode 7,
yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
It's basically a Death Star without a big power laser. Is what it is.
Yeah.
or
Return of the-
engines to move it.
Return of
throughout
Jedi,
system.
where it's
But
only half built and all that, but then it's fully operational. Yeah, that's
that's
the one.
not a moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome
so-
to my fully operational space
So now we've
station.
gone through all the candidates. One thing I picked up on when you were talking about one of the candidates, and I want to go back and do this really quickly, was when you were talking about Lasalle, you mentioned who he would be good for as a gameplay term. So you said bounty hunters and stuff like that, and you did kind of mention some cargo people as well. But can we go quickly back over the candidates and just give me who they're good for in gameplay terms? So let's start with Ileana, Algrid, or whoever wants to jump in here. Actually, anyone who is Addison for in gameplay terms? Is she a medical person? Science. So Endeavor
Science.
people.
I think I actually said that at the beginning. She's science exploration. Exploration because people want to find the.
So Carracks. Some of the ships. Check some of the ships in there. So Carracks, Endeavors, because people know what ships they like. So I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I
So
noticed there's a connection.
people who are
there,
into science and exploration.
Yep.
So
Okay.
Carracks, Endeavors,
Sens.
the Sens.
What about medical ships? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Endeavors.
Yes.
Hopes. Apollos. Yeah.
Would you lean that into repair ships, possibly like Vulcans and Crucibles?
No, I would.
That's
say
a bit of a
Vulcans,
line.
Crucibles.
Okay, yeah, okay. Right, just
No,
asking.
that's more industry.
Okay.
I might say people who want blades, though.
Yep. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So AI turrets
or-
and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Dyson, Titus Costagen. What people do you think he would be for? The haulers and stuff, like cargo, or
Cargo haulers, anyone that actually has to pay docking taxes and other sort of taxes. So basically,
repair people probably too.
all the hull sea people. So the Crucible, all that type of thing. What would that go as far as the band
anyone with a large crew? I think anyone with a large crew.
Right. So even things like javelins and Idrises and stuff like that. Okay, cool. All right. Paul Astro Lasalle, who would he be? What type of gameplay is he going for?
Drill, baby, drill.
So miners.
All about them miners.
Miners?
He's a miner guy.
Miners.
But also hulling. I think haulers would probably like him as well because no restrictions. Bounty
about
hunters,
salvage
earlier,
and
bounty hunters,
salvage?
Yeah.
What about repair?
If you're
as
a
well?
business-
No, anything commercial based.
If you are
Anything industry.
Yeah.
And in terms of gameplay, he is probably the best thing for almost all the players. Just because he removes a lot of the controls from the NPCs and moves it more towards the players. The major difference is that if you don't like the fact that you can just get killed at Port Olisar over and over again and have no consequences,
Yep.
you will have that by 1,000.
Yep.
Like
Also, I
Yep.
think it
if
would.
you're a PvP player, if you were like if you hate Care Bears, you will love Paul Lasalle.
Yeah, right. The other part of it, I would say though, like also it might damage a bit of the exploration element, because if he's not going to take away the fair chance X, you might not be able to, or will you have more things to explore? I'm curious. But...
No, science and exploration would probably be hurt from it. For sure.
Yeah. Mira Nago, what type of gameplay do you think she's going to offer people? Alred? Yeah, doesn't really have any, does she? Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
Just that.
Well, she is. I think she's very much a status quo in some way. She's the only the really big thing she's going to do is move a capital, which I think in the survival of the empire is a good thing, because it'll strengthen the empire. So it'll strengthen so I suppose if you're a criminal, you're not going to like that, because it means military is going to be a better position to respond to
so it's anti-piracy? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I could see it being anti-piracy, but it's certainly strengthening the military's ability to reach problem spaces.
Right.
With the military, I'd see that as also increasing advocacy, because if you're moving government there, it's going to be the government head office is going to, so I can see it being more along those lines.
Yeah, I was thinking haulers as well, because if you're not hauling to Earth, you're kind of less hauling distance. But does that also mean you're getting less profitability?
Do you like Xi'an?
Yeah.
Do you like Xi'an tech? Do you like Apoa or Asperia? She's your candidate.
Yeah.
You like the Tavaran?
Alien stuff.
You like the Prowler?
If you like the Tavaran, she's your
Merchantman. Okay, cool. All right.
And then Banu Merchantman, you like the Banu stuff?
Yep.
She's for you. So she's the alien tech person.
Ileana Sherrod, what ships do you reckon she brings, Dawson?
The big thing I think she may bring is better travel with jump gates and stuff, and you might have actual better infrastructure for unloading cargo and stuff. So cargo haulers, better landing pads, stations,
Pioneer owners.
Pioneers.
Okay,
Pioneer owners.
What about the builders? What about cheaper jump drives and stuff like that? No, yes, no.
That's probably.
I would say that's science.
That's more science. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's one thing we probably didn't talk about is like ship components and stuff like that, but that would play into it in all the candidates as well, wouldn't it? So yeah. All right, well, I'll open the floor now. Is there anything else you guys want to add about any of the candidates in particular, and maybe talk a little about who you actually voted for, or who you intend to vote for if you would like to, because like a real election, you don't have to if you don't want to, But Algrid, you kick it off. A couple of minutes. Just tell me if you want to, who you voted for, and who because it sounds like you're voting for Nago after today. Just
I haven't actually voted yet.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is because I'm still torn. There are elements with every candidate that I like.
I like that though. That you've got to sit there and actually think about who you're going to vote, not like just. Click,
I'm going AI. I'm going AI. No, if you just go AI, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because there's going to be that hidden. Where's this being paid for? Because all the big ticket items that you'd normally cut back. Yeah. She wants to increase education, so that's got expense. She doesn't want to cut military because we're in a merciless war against Bandul. Can't cut that. That's cutting her own throat.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut Synthwell. So where's her funding coming from?
Yeah.
It has to be more taxes. Has to be. There's no other option. So you want higher taxes? vote Addison and suck it up. So I'm torn on all of them. They've all got real good positives, and
has this show helped you at all? I'm just curious. Has this show helped you at all? Hearing stuff from Dyson and Paul, has that helped you at all? I'm just curious.
It's just made it. It's going to drive me to drink. It's going to drive me to drink.
All right, Paul. Your thoughts, and if you want to share who you voted for, besides yourself. You didn't vote for yourself? Okay, right. Okay, my bad.
I didn't vote for myself. No, I voted for Mir Nago, and the reason why I voted for Mir Nago is pretty obvious. I've always been a big supporter of Terra being the
terrorists
being the capital. Yep.
Not biased at all, Algrid. Just keep it to yourself. Right,
and as I've always said, Earth is the old and busted. Terra is the new hotness. old and busted, new hotness. Okay. So
I
there's
had
a
to
famous
target,
quote
sorry.
in lore.
I saw
There's-
it
there's a
execute.
famous-
You'll keep.
Old and busted. New.
What was it? It's the there's a quote in lore from one of the senators from Terra that said, if you want to see where humanity has been, go to Earth. If you want to see where humanity is going, go to Terra.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of more trade, open up the trade, free trade with the Banu, free trade with the Xi'an, because that'll increase relations. It'll prevent war with the Xi'an. I like her in every aspect except for she wants to negotiate with a Vanduul, and I am not okay with negotiating with a Vanduul.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm down for.
Yeah, I think the interesting though, as a layperson too, is it would definitely be safer for us. Being further away from the Vanduul is probably a good thing. That's all I'll add to that.
In terms of a Vanduul thing, like I can remember numerous times people have asked about Vanduul relations, and Dave Haddock has come on and quoted numerous times, it ain't going to happen. Vanduul kind of kill you.
That's the negotiation.
She is a very solid candidate and knows politics, but she's ignorant when it comes to the Vanduul. 100% ignorant when it comes to the Vanduul, because she's like, oh yeah, you're gonna negotiate with Vanduul. She's like, well, no one's tried it. It's like, you don't think people have tried it?
It's like any that's like any politician. They think they know everything.
They're all dead.
But
tell that to the citizens of Orion or Tiber or
real politicians are the same. They think they're experts on everything, but they're not. And the experts will tell them different, and they're like, I'm doing it anyway, because I promised this. Yeah.
And that's again the problem I have with her as well. The Terror thing is just a personal role play thing, but the Vanduul thing, that's like.
All right, so in 5 minutes, Dyson, this will be the longest episode we've ever done. So close it up. Let's go. What are your thoughts on the candidates, and who are you going to vote for?
Hands down, I was actually torn, but hands down for me, it ended up being Nego, because I see a lot of solid policies with expanding trade, expanding relationships with the other alien species out there. Yes, the Vanduul thing's a little bit of a problem, but then again, it could prove useful later on.
It's the least negative of all of them, isn't it, though? Like, of all the other, because everyone has a positive and negative, and she's probably got the least negative.
She'll learn.
Let her try.
Negotiate with Vanduul. Yeah,
what's the worst going to happen? She's dead, and we get a new one. Yeah, cool, awesome. That's it.
Yes.
Another election next week. Thanks. Same time, same channel. Right. Sorry, Dyson.
But I did want to add, as much as I do not like the person of basically the Astropub stand-in guy.
Astropub stand-in. I like that. That's going to stick. Yeah. Yeah. Go. Sorry, Dyson.
As a player, not a person, I think he is a solid choice for someone
I do too.
Who likes bounty hunting, who wants lower taxes, who wants to be able to do mining or whatever he wants in the verse without much interference.
If you don't care about being a speciesist and hating all aliens,
then he's your man. If you want to be able to shoot up everyone who you come across, then he's your man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to wrap up and say. You guys are kind of stealing what I was going to say. Is I feel that it really kind of boils down to Nagoa and Lasalle. They seem to be the two most pro player in a kind of way. And I'll kind of leave my thoughts at that. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah,
the meme's gonna win.
I think
the meme's gonna win. Yeah.
Who? Oh, the meme's
gonna win.
Yeah, I'm going to add that as well. I voted for the meme, but I would very much probably be with you guys and vote either Nago or Lasalle. I'd probably go, like, you know how in Australia you number them in preferential order, so I'd probably go Nagal and then Lasalle.
Funny,
in that order.
You're supposed to be able to do that, but you can't do that in the current ballots. But you're supposed to have been able to.
Do you reckon
it's a ranked choice system?
Do you reckon if I contact the Will or someone like that, they'll let me recast my vote?
Yes, do it.
They might
I feel bad.
Use your old accounts. Use your old accounts.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna see. I don't know. I don't know if I should influence the vote, but yeah, I feel like I need to like Twitter someone. Can I change my vote in the election, please?
And
Yeah.
and your vote matters.
Yeah.
Who we vote for matters, because one of the key things the Imperator does is they choose who the High Secretary is, and they choose the other. They actually put their people into those other roles and those other positions. So that becomes significant. And so
I will add, the Imperator doesn't matter in terms of day-to-day gameplay, but in 2 years from now, what their decisions will have ripple effects to the events that happen in game. So whatever you're choosing right now is going to literally change what type of events you have in 2022.
It's 10 years too. So that's going to affect the course of not the entire course, but it is going to give us a direction for almost the entire game. We might get one more election in the lifetime of the game.
Of the game. Yeah. So now that doesn't say we won't have elections for senators, who also have a huge importance as well.
Yeah.
But this is probably going to set the tone for the story of Star Citizen.
Yeah.
So
we see an impeachment.
And
or an assassination.
And
that could be a thing. Yeah. That really could be a thing. And like the writers get bored. Impeachment time. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah. And if we stuff it up, it means that all of the Senate elections that come up during the time will be really important, because they'll be the ones, if you got someone who we hate and find, this is really bad, then electing senators who are opposed to that person would be really important, because it'd be the only way you could mitigate what they were doing.
Now I've got...
So, go on.
You finished? I was going to say, I've got 30 seconds to wrap this up, because I don't want it to be the longest video we've ever done. I'm trying to wrap it up as quick as I can. Are you done? Because I want to wrap it up, because I don't want it to be the longest one we've ever done. I want the other one to be the longest one. I'm pro the other one, not this one. Anyway, right. So he's been Algrid, he's been Paul, he's been Dyson, I've been Execute. We hope we've actually helped you guys decide who you're going to vote for, because it's definitely changed who I wish I'd voted for. If you like this, leave any comments who you voted for, and do you think we're kind of like spot on with who we picked? Let us know who you picked and why, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Be informed and vote.
Take care. God bless and be well.